Allie, you made it back on.
I was just so excited. I was like, 10 o'clock, let's go.
Right. Every hour on the hour, Allie just signs up into this meeting room.
I do. I just check in, just see what's going on.
Good for you. For you. All right, cool guys. Well, let's get rolling. For those that don't know me, I'm Aaron Klapper, and we're going to talk handling objections this week. And every week we really just come together as a group and support each other in growing our businesses. This is all about agents helping agents, so that's what we're about. So let's continue on our topic of handling objections. And handling objections is something that, for some people, it's really it can be a little scary, because when they think about handling objections, they think about confrontation, or they think about arguing, and it's really not about that. Handling objections, many times, it's just the client is just trying to slow things down. Like, hold on, I just want to talk about this a little bit before I sign a contract, or I have some questions that I want to discuss before we move this thing forward. So handling objections is something that us as the agents should feel very comfortable in working with a client with. We shouldn't get all tense about it. It's the time where we should lean into it. In fact, Mike Ferry talks about this all the time. When somebody comes up with an objection, the thing that should come into our mind. Sean, can you mute yourself, please? Thanks. When we're handling objections, when somebody comes up with an objection, a really cool thing to pop into our mind is, oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Like, you can actually verbalize that, or it can just be in your head. I'm so glad you brought that up. Even if it's subconscious and you don't actually verbalize it, because it'll put you in the right state to really have an honest, open conversation. And in fact, in any part of the business, if you reach a point of tension, if you're negotiating, or let's say another agent brings you a repair request that's really, I just got one this morning, actually, a $50,000 repair request. It's like, what? That was my first thought. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you said that to me. Why? Because it really puts me in a state of, all right, we'll make this work. We're going to make this come together, rather than, how could you do this? How could you bring up cutting commissions? How could you bring up this or that or the other? So, handling objections. I'm so glad you brought that up. And it really puts you in a good mental state to handle the objection. That's a fun little thing to do when somebody throws an objection your way, right? So the next point for handling objections is this. You don't have to have a lot of different answers to the objections that you receive. You just need 2 or 3 responses to the most common ones that you hear. So you don't have to have a dozen different handlers for some of these objections. Just 1 or 2 or 3 that work for you, that resonate for you. Okay? For instance, somebody says to you, we only want to give you a 30-day listing, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I just don't do that. 6 months is our company policy. Therefore, all we need to do now is simply sign the contract. So I can get you help what you want. I can help you get what you want in the time you want. Won't they be great? Right? Very simple response. Very simple response. Doesn't have to be anything complicated. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It just has to be an answer. So do you guys have any, now that we're kind of all on, are there any objections that you get repetitively that we can come up with 2 or 3 responses for, that you have on the top of your head? And if not, we'll keep going. That's okay if you don't. Okay, good.
So I have something I've been getting a lot lately.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like really an objection so much as just like an issue I'm running into.
Yep.
But with rates going up, it seems like all of my clients want to think it's okay to try to write like at ask or under asking. And I'm like, it's just not the market we're in. So I'm trying to like get them to understand and come up, but I'm just having a hard time, I guess. It's more me as an agent reflective, but I have like 3 clients that I'm working with right now that they all, because of where rates are at and their payments, they like, well, I want to write at this number. And I'm like, okay, we can do that, but it's probably not going to get accepted. So I guess it's probably not an objection, but it's more of like a just thing that's on my mind. That's kind of.
Well, I'll tell you what I would do is I would call the listing agent directly, immediately,
Mhm.
right? And just because it may be okay to do that, or it may not be okay. It may be a total waste of time. And so that will pretty much shorten the conversation.
Yeah. Well, I do that immediately. And then like a lot of times you can find out information and it's like, oh, well, they're already over asking. It's like, well, can we just still write just in case something falls through? And I'm like, sure. So I'm just writing all these contracts and like nothing. It's just, I
So,
don't know.
yeah. Phil, were you going to say something?
Aaron, when I always do that, I follow your suggestion and call the agent, but information is only good as what the agent's going to give you, correct? So I have found out, half of the times they lie, whatever, they lie. I mean, do you just go off by your numbers and what you think it's worth and giving them an offer? I've been like, for example, there's one right now, it's been on the market for 4 months. They told us no, no, no. Now they reduced it twice. And I mean, I understand it's timing and I know it's circumstantial. I know people run into different, tired of holding the property. So how would you go vetting agents' information?
Right. So yeah. So what you guys are saying is very much in alignment. So back to Allie for one quick second, and then we'll go to Phil because it's all related. So Allie, I would say that there has to be a little bit deeper conversation surrounding that. They say, "Oh, I'd rather write it anyway." Does it just end there? That
Mhm.
you can say to them, "Listen, I spoke with the agent. They actually are going to have 4 offers. All 4 are going above asking price. We expect this to sell between 50 and 100,000 above asking price. If you write it at asking price, not only 2 things are going to happen. Number one is you're not going to get any response. You're not going to be in a backup position. And the second thing that's going to happen is you're just going to get frustrated that much faster.
Yep.
Because inevitably you write an offer, you have some expectation you're going to get it accepted either now or down the road. And I've seen this happen time and time again. I don't want you to get frustrated. So I'd rather you just say, you know what? This is not the property for me. Let's
Mhm.
pass on it because with 100% certainty at that price, you will not get that property. I don't want you to have any sort of misunderstanding about this if you're that clear with the agent. Now, as Phil says, sometimes you don't get the information. And I'd say there's something here, Phil, that we could all improve upon, which is real rapport building. I think we can always do better at this because you're right. Some agents lie. And I don't think it's good enough to just say, okay, well, maybe that agent's a liar. I still think we could do better. I still think we can do better at asking questions. I still think we can draw information from almost any agent. So how could we do a better job? I mean, ultimately, if they're truly not going to give us any information, like for instance, maybe the agent just doesn't answer their phone.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. They shoot your text back, texting. I'm not going to answer the phone. Okay, fine. You're kind of out of luck, right? You're going to have to just make your best estimation, do your best guess. However, if you can get them on the phone, I feel like an agent is going to lie and they say, they've been on the market for a few months and they say, oh, we're getting all kinds of interest and we're getting offers, and you're saying to yourself, listen, this thing ain't selling. Like, what the hell? Like, this guy's clearly lying. So then you have to be a little bit more maybe creative in your response to them. And you could say, all right, Phil, well, listen, I appreciate you sharing that your clients will only take a full price offer. However, I really want to try and make this deal work. I'd love for us to work together. However, I already know that my client is not going to write a full price offer. I think I can get him pretty close to full, but are you telling me that it's just not worth it? Like, if your guys will not consider it, then I guess we just don't have an opportunity to work together. So be honest with me, like, help me out here. I want us to help each other. I want us to work together on this. Are you telling me that if we come in even slightly below asking price, that they're just going to throw it in the trash? They're not even going to respond? Like sometimes they might try a little bit of a smoke screen, like, no, give us a full, we have all these offers. Listen, these guys want to get paid as much as the next guy. So I would just slow it down, ask your questions, create that rapport, be on their side. Listen, I want, Phil, I want us to do this together. But and you can always put it on the client a little bit. I don't think he'll do that. I just don't think the client's going to do that. But let's work together, Phil, and seeing how we can push this client up. I really want to, and in doing that, we're getting information, right? And then we can do with what we want with that information. So I always try and not sit across the table from someone. I try and walk around the table, put my arm around their shoulder and say, all right, Phil, let's look at, we're a team here, buddy. We're going to work on this, and we're going to make, we're going to get this deal together. Let's work together and try and really put our minds together and figure out how this is going to work. And I find that by really coming from that approach of collaboration, they'll always give me a little bit more information than they thought they would. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's my attitude, at least.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's at least my attitude. Is that helpful? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Hannah, why don't you kind of discuss what you kind of put in the chat there? All right, let's see. So Hannah, maybe her mic's not working. Hannah says, here's an objection I get a lot these days. There are uncertain times between the war in Ukraine, inflation, rising interest rates. It's just not a good time to buy. Hannah, are you on? Can you hear? Can you talk?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha. Perfect. All right. So it's just not a good time to buy, right?
Right.
So let me read you kind of what the next point is, and then we can discuss it, because this is really relevant. Okay. When handling objections, always agree, always smile, always nod your head, never argue. Never argue. Okay, you're right. Maybe it's not a good time to buy, right? I'm not going to say, yes, it is, Hannah. Yes, it's a great time to buy. It's like, whoa, am I going to really get somebody to buy a home if I argue like that? Yeah, that really makes her want to get out her checkbook and just write a big check, right? So it's like, yeah, I totally understand. I don't have to say you're right, but I can say, I totally understand. These are uncertain times. There is a war in Ukraine. There is inflation. There is rising interest rates. Yes, all these things are happening. So tell me, so Hannah, do you have a particular client in mind?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to role play it.
I have two. Yeah.
So pick one.
Okay.
Whichever one you think is more challenging, and we'll role play it. So Hannah, yes, all these things are happening. So tell me more about that. What is your concern?
My concern is that people are just not going to be able to qualify because of the rising interest rate. The fundings are just going to be a lot lower than the asking price, and that leaves all these people out. So basically, I don't have enough information to know by how much prices will drop for me to go in, because I have the opportunity to buy all cash, but I don't want to spend now all these cash when most people are not going to be able to get fundings.
Right. So you're looking to buy a place. You have all cash, which is amazing. Congratulations. Like, that's not an easy thing for most people. So,
well, I'd rather not use my cash, but I could use my cash.
You could. Okay, great. And so either way, you're in a very strong position, but you're feeling that there might be a massive drop in the market. And if there's a drop in the market, you have the cash to be able to swoop in and potentially get some great deals if and when the market drops, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be like 2008, but I do think that prices will drop.
Okay. And when do you think that will happen?
I don't know. I mean, that's exactly the question I asked him. I said, do you think it's going to be a 3 months timeline, or do you think it's going to be more like 6 and 8 months? And he was like, I don't know. I can't tell you.
Yeah. So I had the same conversation with a friend of mine about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. He is buying a house for his son. His son just graduated medical school. He got a job as a doctor out in Riverside, California. Riverside is not the beach cities, right? Like, Riverside's a little more volatile. It's not as insulated. He goes, God, I don't know if it's a good time to buy in Riverside Aaron, this is a good friend of mine. His name is
Mhm.
Sean. I said, Sean, what's your concern? He goes, well, the rates are going up. And I said, Sean, what's the last peak of the market? He said, I'm concerned it's a peak. I don't know if we're at the peak of the market. I said, okay, what's the last peak of the market that you remember? He goes, 2007. I go, that's right. And what's the peak before that? He goes, I don't know. I said, it was 1989.
Mm.
And I don't know whatever the peak before that was, but Sean, what do you think would happen if you were the worst investor in the history of real estate investing and all you did was purchase one property at the peak of every single market? You purchased a house on the highest day in 1989 and you held it. And you purchased a day at the house on the highest day of 2007 and you held it. And you purchased a house. What would have happened to those houses? He says they all went up in value.
Mm.
I said, have you ever, and he's bought a bunch of houses over up markets, down markets. I said, Sean, have you ever once bought a house that went down in value? Ever? He goes, no. So I said, there's your answer, Sean.
But
So
why pay more if you can pay less?
well, that's true. And what happens if you don't buy and 1 year from now, they're worth more?
Mm.
Who's to say? In other words, one thing I know for sure, values over time always 100% of the time go up. Are there blips along the way where they go down? Sure. If you want to try and time them, be my guest. You can certainly do that. One thing I know for sure is that this is an inflationary time. And all I know is some of my wealthiest clients, the way that they choose to hedge against inflation is they buy more real estate, because inflation means that prices are going up. So if you're asking my opinion, it is never a bad time to buy real estate. You can't go wrong. Those people that bought in 2007, could there have been a worse time to buy real estate? Honestly, could there have been a worse time than 2007 to buy real estate? The worst economic meltdown in the history of real estate occurred in 2008 and 9 and 10 and 11. And finally, we're scraping the bottom in 2012. Guess what? Even if you did that, you made a fortune on that real estate. So what is the likelihood that it'll crash? What is the likelihood that it'll go? Well, I know the likelihood that it'll go up is 100% over time. I know the likelihood it'll crash is, it's up to you. So I can't speak for you. You have to make that decision. But I know that over many years to come, whatever you purchase will be a lot more money in the future. Now, is this person looking to buy something to live in? Or are they looking to buy an investment property, Hannah? What is their reason for buying?
An investment property.
Okay. The other thing is if they think that do they believe that the prices are going to go down because rates are going to go up more?
Yes. Yeah. He believes that the interest rates are going to go even higher.
Okay. Another thing I look at is just simply supply and demand. The rates have gone up. Everything we're selling is still selling with multiple offers. So I look at simple economics, and even with the interest rates going up, we're still selling everything because there is a wonderful appetite of people that still want to buy. That's all I'm seeing. Boots on the ground. Phil, what do you see?
Can I just suggest something to Hannah? I have these conversations at least 20 times a day, right? And we still have investors that are buying because the rents are high. So here goes. We have no inventory. We have Olympics and World Cup is coming, right? We have, like Aaron said, inflation that people are pulling money out of their stocks to basically go into rental properties, and wages are up. We have, and I personally think LA is still undervalued comparing to like Tokyo, London, New York, Paris, you name it. So I'm just exhausted talking to people about, oh my God, the market is going to crash. No, it's not going to crash. It will not. It may dip 5%, I think, but this is just insanity, what I've been hearing every day, basically. I could be wrong, but those are my 2 cents.
Well, yeah, these things, are we economists? No. Are people going to make their own decision? Yes. But I think it is our duty to share with them at least what we see. And what we see is the reality of what happens in the market. What we see is people that have purchased real estate in any market in the past have all made money. And there's always going to be the people that are on social media, watching the news. There's always the buzz. The market's going to crash. Okay. If you think it's going to crash, how much? First of all, when and by how much? Is it going to crash by crash? That's a very loaded word. Is it going to go down by 5%, 10%, 20%, 50%? No, not 50%, not 20%, maybe 5%, 10%. Okay. Well, when? How certain are you of it? Because I am 100% certain that over time it will go up and rents will go up. So, these are conversations that you can at least share what you have seen in reality. These are smart people. They will make their own decisions, but at least you don't have to get, and you're not trying to convince anyone of anything again, right? You can't make a decision for anyone. They're going to do what they want to do, but at least you can inject some realistic sense of, not all the craziness. You buy, you make money over time. End of story.
Thank you. That is very helpful.
Yeah, I try and be very simple, really. I try. I don't have a super. I try and explain things the way that I could explain to a child, because that's an understanding that I have, right? You buy it and it goes up over time, and that's truly what I've seen from my wealthiest clients. If they're thinking about buying it and selling it a year from now, A, they'll probably make money anyway, but B, maybe that's not the smartest game. No, 1 year from now, I have to pull the cash back out. It's like, maybe hold on to it, stay liquid. But, otherwise, I just don't see, right now at this moment, prices are still going up. That's what I see. There'll be more 3 months from now than they are today. There'll be more 6 months, so we still have multiple offers. So everything is still on a good trajectory. Although you will use emotion during your presentation, this is back to handling objections. Although you will use emotion during your presentation, use logic when handling objections, as it makes it easier for the prospect to understand. That's kind of what we just talked about. Emotion is all about what the news is talking about. Crash. Using the word crash, that's a very emotional word, right? That emotion sells, my goodness. The market's going to crash. What does that even mean, right? The market's going to come down by 3.5% in the next 97 days. All right, fine. That's logic, whether it's true or not, right? Crash, you're just abusing people, right? At that point, just abusing their emotions. So it's important, as we discussed, to just inject a little bit of logic, like I did when I talked to Sean, my friend. Sean, have you ever bought a piece of real estate that actually lost money? No, I haven't. Okay, Sean, what's the problem then? Because one thing we know for sure, if you don't buy, Sean, and you just rent your son a house in Riverside and pay $2,500 a month, we know with 100% certainty that you're throwing $30,000 a year down the drain. That's for sure, right? You worried about paying a higher rate? Well, when you pay rent, you're paying 100% rate, because you're paying 100% of the, 100% of the landlord's mortgage. So forget about paying 4.5%. You're paying 100% when you rent. So there's a very interesting, I want to share this with you guys on one of our previous calls. Let me grab a piece of paper so I can show this to you. This is kind of cool. So this is something that you can explain when you explain renting versus owning to people, okay? Renting versus owning. And this is how you explain it. This is kind of off the topic, but it just came into my head and I really want you guys to use this. So you can work with a buyer and draw a very simple chart, okay? I'll use a nice big green marker. 2 graphs, rent and own, just like that. Rent and own on one side, okay? Now, when you rent, your payment over time goes up. It's that kind of a payment, right? It goes up just like that. When you own over time, your payment stays fixed. It stays fixed. So that's the difference of renting and owning versus the payment line, okay? So that's the green line for payment. Do I have another color? I do, I've got blue. The blue line is going to be the equity line. When you rent, your equity line remains fixed because you have no equity. You do not own anything. Your equity does not go up. Your payment line goes up, your equity line stays flat. When you own, your equity line goes up and up and up. It's a reverse relationship. When you own, your payment stays flat and your equity goes up. Now, this very much goes back to what Hannah was saying with her client, with the market. My goodness, what if the market, you put your money in real estate, when you own, over time, your equity goes up. Potentially, will the rates ever go down? If they do, not only will your payment stay flat, if you refinance, your payment could even get lower potentially over time. So this is a really cool graph that you can pull out and use with clients that are saying, you know what, the rates are going up. I think the market's going to crash. Now, Hannah's working with an investor, but this is for someone that says the same thing, but I want to rent. I'm going to continue to rent. I just think this is too weird of a time. The market's going to crash. Rates are too high. I'd rather just rent. Use this graph and say, which side of the graph would you rather be on? The rental side or the owner side? Would you rather have a fixed equity position, which is 0, and a raising payment, or a raising equity position and a fixed payment? Super simple, really, really powerful. And there's something that happens when you actually draw something in front of a client where they're just like, holy, again, this is for kindergartners, right? But there's something very elementary and simple that people understand when you talk about it like that. So again, that's just based on our last point, logic, always using logic. Next point when it comes to handling objections. Again, remember not to argue because it puts the prospect on the defense and makes it more difficult to get a contract signed. People will never, there's a saying, right? Customer's always right. Now, the customer's technically not always right, but you're not trying to make people wrong. So you can say, you can use words like, I understand why you'd think that. I totally agree. I can see why you feel that way. Acknowledge them. Don't make them wrong. And then they will not feel aggressed. They don't feel like they have to dig in their defenses. So handling objections, back to objection handlers. Let's say, here's a very simple one. I have a friend in the business. Are you going to say, I'm better than them, I'm number one? No, you're going to agree, acknowledge, never make them wrong. I can appreciate that, right? And almost everyone does. That's agreeing. So we're not arguing, right? So I have a friend in the business. I can appreciate that, and almost everyone does. I'm saying to you, it's okay, right? So let me ask you, do you absolutely have to sell this home? Or are you just looking to do a friend a favor? I mean, obviously, you had me out here for a reason, right? Do you feel I can sell your home? Terrific. All we need to do now is simply sign the contract so I can help you get what you want in the time you want. Won't that be great? And that's really what objection handling is. Never argue. Always start with agreement, and it lowers their defenses. Okay, next point. Learn to recognize that at times, The prospect is simply bringing up an objection to create conversation. Understand that you can smile and continue without answering. When I realized this, it blew my mind. So when somebody brings up an objection, you feel like, I have to answer that. Sometimes you can just acknowledge it and continue to move on, and they just forget about it. And the reason for that is because sometimes they bring it up, they just want to slow down the conversation or create more conversation. Whether it's, oh, I have a friend in the business. Oh, that's terrific. Almost everyone does. And then you just continue on with your conversation. You haven't even handled anything, oh, we want to, will you do it for less commission? Oh, we can talk about that in a minute. Let me just finish my presentation. Then it never comes up again. So you guys don't have to take everything at, so literally, I guess, is the point of this point. Recognize that human nature is a very funny thing. When you're prospecting, when you're doing lead follow-up, when you're on a presentation, whether it's a buyer or a seller presentation, people throw objections at you, not because they always mean it, not because it's always like super important to them, right? Oh, I want you to give me a discount. Can you give me a discount? I'm purchasing a property. Oh, can you give me a $10,000 discount? It's not always that it's that important. Maybe they read something somewhere on the internet about doing that, or they had a friend that did that, but they don't even really need that. It's not even that important. They just felt like asking, or they're slowing down the conversation. So understand that you don't need to put all this weight and importance on all these things, and just have an awareness of that. Remember, objections usually come from someone that wants to work with you, but who has a couple of questions. With this thought, you can get excited about having the opportunity to respond. Kind of a cool thought. If you're presenting and somebody really just doesn't want to work with you, are they going to give you objections? Or they're going to be like, oh, thanks for your time. Okay, we'll let you know. Thanks. We've got to run and we'll get back to you, right? If they give you objections, wow, that was a great presentation. Listen, will you do it for less money? I want to work with you. I just want to know if you'll do it for less. Will you do it for a 30-day listing agreement? Like, I love everything you say. I got burned in the past. I want to do it for 30 days. Thanks for the recommendation of $1.5 million. Will you list it at $1.8 million? Like, I want to work with you. I'm just trying to figure out how we can make it work. So sometimes they're giving you an objection because they really want to work with you. And they're trying to just work through, how can I make this happen with this guy? How can I make it happen with this woman, right? So they really want to make it work. So again, sometimes getting an objection, you should feel excited by that because they're bringing to the surface, this is a problem you and I need to resolve. So I guess what I'm bringing, there's some conflicting messages here. Sometimes I'm saying they bring up an objection, you can just gloss it over. Sometimes I'm saying they bring up an objection, you can let's really dig into this. And the point is that it's kind of different things at different times. It's not always for the same reason. So it's kind of cool that as we bring up this conversation around objection handling, sales really becomes something that you can really dig deep into so much. It's like there's so much to it. It's not really that simple, which really just means we're always learning. We always have so much to learn. And the more you can now, the more we can all identify, okay, why did this person actually say that? Sean, let's say you're prospecting and you find someone that seems to be totally motivated and interested in doing something, and they say, oh, I've got a friend in the business. Okay, then you can really start to ask yourself, why did they just say that? Are they telling me that just because they want to bring up conversation? Are they telling me that because they're letting me know that there's no chance in hell that we're going to ever work together? So now you're becoming a better salesperson. You can start to say, okay, how did they say that? Under what context did they say that? How was their body language when they said that? What kind of follow-up questions am I going to ask because they said that? And it all becomes part of this dance, right? To become more efficient as a salesperson. Let's do one more point and then we can open it up for questions. Next point is this: remember that knowledge equals confidence, and your knowledge inspires confidence in the mind of the prospect when you answer their questions. So when you are able to answer someone's question, you having a knowledgeable response to them, it instills a level of confidence from them to you. God, this guy's good. Like sometimes they want to ask you an objection just to see how you'll respond. They don't realize that per se, but they might have something that they're not comfortable about. They ask you a question, they have you handle objection, you answer it like that, it just puts them at ease. I feel comfortable with this person. I'm going to work with them. That's what they're thinking. And again, actually, we'll do one more point. Remember that in most cases, they won't ask you a question or give you an objection if they actually aren't considering working with you. Very, very important. If you're getting objections, that's a good thing. It means they really want to work with you. Now, as your presentation gets really, really good, you won't get objections because there'll be nothing to object to. They're just thinking, I want to give this guy a standing ovation. Like, that was a great presentation. Like, I have nothing to object to. I'm ready to work with him. I'm ready to work with her. But before that point, before you get to that level of mastery that we would all love to aspire to get to, people will have objections, and that just means they want to work with you. They want to figure out a way that you can work together. So we'll stop it there with handling objections, but let's open up the floor a little bit. What are you guys working on, or what challenges are you having that we can dig into get together as a group, whether it's on objection handling or anything else?
I have a question. I was role playing, and it's kind of to your point you just spoke about the confidence factor, and some feedback I received was to be more on an expired call, to be more assertive, and yet I was conflicting that with mirroring and matching. So in mirroring and matching, if they're very friendly, if they're very amiable, right, that's what you're supposed to be. And at the same time, everybody secretly wants to be led, right? So mixing in the assertive side of saying, hey, this is what needs to be done to get your home sold, but not coming off as aggressive or in a way that's going to move you out of rapport. I think that is what I'm trying to find. I want more of that assertiveness around my scripting when I call somebody. How do you mix that in? What is your take on being that assertive to the point of it's confidence too, which you were just talking about, right? But
so the first thing is that when you develop rapport with someone, it's called pacing and leading, Matt, right? Pacing is developing that rapport. And once you have rapport, you can then lead them.
correct.
You're in rapport and you can lead them. You can take control of the conversation, right? You must build a rapport and then you can lead the conversation. Leading the conversation means you're taking control, and that is only done through asking questions, which is following a script essentially. That will get you, the script is designed to take you to the promised land, which is an appointment, right? That's the end of the script is an appointment. So it's all about following a script, pacing and leading, creating rapport through asking questions and asking follow-up questions and digging deeper. Once you have that rapport, you get back on the script, continue to follow that script, which will take you to the appointment. And if you do this correctly and you have rapport throughout the entire process, the appointment really doesn't require a lot of objection handling. It doesn't require a lot of closes. It is a natural ending to a great presentation. By the time you get to the end of your script, you're saying, when would be the best time for us to meet? Tuesday or Wednesday at 4. And they say, Wednesday would be great. It only becomes like this, a combative thing, when there is no rapport built. Does that kind of make sense or answer?
Yeah, yeah, yes. Mark, what were you going to say?
Matt, I was gonna ask you, what do they mean by being assertive with the script? What do they mean by that?
The feedback was, because I was following the script verbatim, tonality, I was mirroring and matching, asking questions. I think it was possibly maybe in the close or stating facts of coming off more business-like than friendly. I think so. Maybe it was my vocabulary. Maybe it was the vocabulary I was using instead of saying, "Hey, what's up?" It was more like, "Hey, you know, whatever." I can't think of an example, but I'm trying to figure out: is it my tonality? It is in the questions that you're asking. I was trying to figure out what he meant, and if you guys had any thoughts on being more assertive and being more dominant, but I don't know.
You can be very assertive. So a script, when you set an appointment, you can say, you know, there is, you can use the same words, but say them in very different ways. For instance, if I see you on the street, I could say, "What's up, you jerk?" You know, like laughing, or I could be like, "What's up, you jerk?" Like, that means very different things. You can use the same exact words, and a script can be delivered in a very different way. So you can, again, it's about the things that you just said. It's about developing rapport. It's about using your tonality, your rate of speech, how quickly or slowly you're speaking. Are they speaking loud or soft? It's mimicking and mirroring and matching, and all these things lend to rapport building. And then you can ask a question using their style to ultimately lead to an appointment. So if it feels assertive, if it feels overly assertive to someone, that just tells me they probably aren't feeling that there's rapport built there. They just weren't ready. You probably went a little bit too early for the close. Maybe there was one or two more digging deeper questions you could have asked. You know, they weren't, you know, ultimately on the role play, if they gave you the appointment, it was a successful role play. They could have said, "No, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to meet with you." And you could have said, "Okay, tell me more about that." Well, and then you could have come back around and tried again. So role plays are wonderful because it's all about improving and getting better. How can I be better at delivering my scripts? How can I be better at developing rapport with people, asking better questions, finding out what makes them tick, where they want to move to, when they want to be there, what's important about this move, what's important about the agent they choose, and how can I deliver on those things? But it all stems from asking great questions. So
I'm very grateful about the feedback, to be honest, because you could be, as you said, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You could be saying the right things. You could say the script verbatim. You can mirror and match, but if your tonality is off with the questions per the conversation, you can lose them based on possibly one thing alone. So it triggered my mind to be more conscious because I think I'm having the right conversations.
Yeah,
but maybe not conscious of that.
I'm listening to your voice right now, just hearing it in that way, and it sounds very there's a directness to your voice where it almost could sound I don't want to say mean, but it can sound harsh.
Yeah.
So you might have to almost overact to add a little bit more tonality and, you know, range to make it to soften it up a little bit. You know what you should do, Matt, is record your role play. Do you record them?
No.
Record it and listen back.
Good idea.
You will be blown away by listening to yourself. Just record it and listen back, and do that for, you know, the next 10 role plays you do, and you'll hear it exactly what they're saying, because you have no idea what you sound like. You'll say, okay, I sound way too harsh. So that's probably the answer. Just record it and listen back. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up real quick before we wrap for today? All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your participation. If there's anything you need between now and next week, just give me a ring. And otherwise, we will chat next week. All right, guys, go crush it.
Cool. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks.